Okay, let's take a look at Adobe Audition. That's the software that we have open here, and we're gonna go over a basic overview of how to use the software, how to edit, kind of what the different things are, how to set it up. So let's get into it. Up here first, you're gonna go up to File and go to New, Multi-Track Session, or if you just want to edit one audio file, you can go to that, but we want a multi-track session, or you can go to Open Recent. You have all these recent files that you can go into. So I'm actually going to open a recent session to show you guys. If you just open a plain session, that would look just like this. So let's go over what we see on the screen here. We've got our kind of timeline. This red line here is going to move through time as we play, and anything that's on these timeline, when the red bar goes across it, it's going to play it. So if you put sound here and then more sound here, it's going to play this one first and then this one when it gets to it, or if they were both right here on top of each other, it would play them simultaneously. So these are just like layers over one another. We can record sound onto these layers. We can record sound simultaneously onto different layers, or we could drag and drop just some sound into here that way and edit it that way. We also have our kind of media browser here where we can pick sounds and drag them on from here. Any sound or audio file that we've already started editing in this session is going to be up here for quick reference. And then up here, we're going to have our different cursor options. So we've got this one that we use to move things around, this one here that we use to make cuts in things. I made a little line, a little keyframe there for some reason, but normally it's going to make cuts with that. If we want to undo, we can go Edit, Undo, and we see that the hotkey for that is also Control-Z, so we can just undo those cuts and that little keyframe that we made there as well. We also have a select tool. If we wanted to select different parts of it, we could do it just like that. Cool. The last thing I want to go over is these options right here. Right now we're in Multitrack View. If we were to click on Waveform View, it would take us to where we're editing just that one file. Again, back to multi-view. If we double click it, it's going to take us to the same sort of waveform view. So when we're adding effects to a file, we're changing the sound of the file, we kind of want to do it in here and apply the effects in here and save them on this screen, because if we go and apply them on this screen and save them when we export the file, it's going to make our final file size bigger. So we want to apply our effects in here if we can. So how do we apply effects? Well, we'll get into that in just a minute, but real quick, let's go over how we record into the program. You're going to want to, say we want to record, this is our intro music here. Say we want to record onto this track our podcast session. Here's what we're going to have to do. First, we're going to need to make sure that our audio interface is set up to send sound into our computer, right? Just make sure we have our audio interface set up. So we're going to go to Edit, Preferences, Audio Hardware, okay? Or we could click Audio Hardware selected over here on the side. We're going to come in here and we're going to make sure that our default input is put to my piece of equipment is called a Scarlett, a Focusrite Scarlett. So that's what we have here selected, and then our default output is to our speakers. And again, these other settings, this matches our sample rate of our device. The latency, we won't mess with too much. You can look up more about that if you want to know about latency. So we have our device set up there, and now that we've told our computer to take sound in from our audio interface, we just need to tell this track as well to take audio in from our audio interface. So we're going to click on this menu here, and we're going to select stereo, because I have a left and right channel plugged in. If we just had one channel plugged in, we might choose mono, or if we had, let's say my microphone was in one channel and then someone else's microphone was in the other channel, I would choose my microphone for this track. We would go set up their track and we would choose mono, we would choose their microphone, and then we would record to two separate tracks. We just have sound coming out from our mixer, stereo sound, so we just have this first line in, stereo input. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and delete this, so I'm going to click on it, hit delete, boom, it's gone. Again, if I wanted it back, Control, Undo. If I want to redo it, I can actually do Edit, Redo. Okay, so now I'm ready to record on this track up here. Let's zoom in. Over here we have our zoom tools. We have our vertical zoom, and we also have our horizontal zoom here. we can also grab this little guy on the side and stretch and zoom in like that. Okay, so we're recording here. We have it set up for our line in to go to this track. So now we just have to click this little R button, and now as soon as I click it, you can see I have another microphone set up here. When I talk, we see that we're getting a signal. So now we want to set our levels. Let me lean over and turn this microphone up just a little bit so that when I talk, there we go, we're just getting into some of the yellow. So that's going to be a better signal for us. I'm actually going to turn it up just a little bit more because it looks like we've got room. You can also see that my board has a left and right out that aren't quite equal. So if I maybe turn my left up a little bit more as I talk, I can see, yeah, they start to get a little more equal. That's fine for me. That's for our purposes right now what we're doing. That's fine. So we would be ready to record. So if we wanted to record, all we would do now is we would hit record. As soon as we hit record, you can see it starts recording my voice. When I talk, it makes little peaks. When I'm silent, no peaks. And you can see even though when I'm quiet, there's still noise going on. Right there. So we're definitely recording some noise as well. But that's what it's going to look like. You can let this run. You record your podcast. Remember, you want to try and record a little silence at the beginning. That's going to be helpful. Or at least a little silence somewhere so you can grab that for noise reduction later. But we would let this record until we were done, and then we would hit stop. Bam, there we go. And now we're going to want to save it, right? After we record, we're always going to want to save. We hit R again. It will unarm that recording. Sorry, I'll start talking back into your microphone here. And that's it. So we have our file recorded. We can zoom in this way. We see it's not all the way up at the front. If we wanted to grab it and click it all the way up to the front, we know that it doesn't start till right here, so we might want to make some edits and cut that part out. And we could delete this. We could click it, hit delete, and we could drag over, or let me undo and undo again. We could take this and we could right click and we could go to ripple delete selected clips, and that's going to delete that. And you see how everything just moved over? Let me do it again for you. When we ripple delete, when we normal delete, it's going to leave a big hole, okay? When we ripple delete, it's going to move everything to the right of it up, and it's going to fill that space so we don't leave gaps there, okay? And let me show you also, if we want to undo again, okay, we could also grab the edge of it. See this little red bracket tool comes up? That means we can grab the edge and we can drag it over to where it starts. And if we wanted to zoom in, put our timeline there, it's going to zoom in on where that red line is, okay? And we can see exactly where that sound starts. If we wanted to trim it all the way right up exactly to where we start talking, we could do that, okay? So now I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to zoom out here as well. And we have our audio. Let's say that this was the beginning of our podcast and we wanted to maybe drag in some intro music. We could put our intro music in here. This fades out naturally, but if we wanted to fade out in Audition, this is cool. We can grab this gray square up here. We can grab it, stretch it over, and we can, if we move it up or down, this is going to fade it out, and this is going to change the sound of how it fades out. So it's already fading out. But if we were to play over this again, this would be having it fade out. Over here, we can have it fade in. Since it's already, the track is already faded out, we're not going to do that right now. So let's see what this would sound like. We would play some music, and then eventually my voice would just start. As soon as we hit record, you can see it starts recording my voice. When I talk, So that's what we just recorded. Okay, so let's move on now. That's a good idea of how it's set up. Again, this is Multitrack View. Let's switch over to Waveform View and talk about post-processing. So we're going to double-click this guy right here. If we went to Waveform View, it would probably, we go to the last one that we edited. So if we double-click this one, we went back to Multitrack, click Waveform again. It's going to go back to the last one that we had the waveform open for. So here's our file that we recorded that we want to make sound better. We're going to want to make sure we have it all selected. So this window is showing us how much we're viewing. If we move the blue segment along, we're only seeing what the blue is showing us. So we want to make sure we have everything in view and everything selected. We're going to go Edit, Select All, or we can just do Control A, and that's going to select everything. Okay, so let's start talking about post-processing. How are we going to make this sound better? Again, let's listen to it for just a second here. As soon as we hit record, you can see it starts recording my voice when I talk. Okay, it doesn't sound too bad. So we don't always have to do all of these steps, okay? But let's say we have kind of rough audio and we wanted to try and make it sound better. All right, we have this big long file. First thing I'm going to want to do is apply the hard limiter, which remember that's going to cut off sound at some point, and we really don't have too many rogue peaks, so I'm going to do it just to do it, but really we don't need it very well. And let's talk about how we're going to apply effects. So we can either put effects over here. This is our effect rack. We can click this arrow and a little drop down pops up and we can choose. We're looking for the hard limiter, so it's amplitude and compression, hard limiter. We could apply it that way, or we could just do a drop down from up here. We could click effects, same thing, amplitude and compression, hard limiter. So let's do it this way first, okay? A little window is going to pop up. I've got my custom settings here. These are, you can choose whatever settings you want, but let's just go with these settings, okay? So I'm going to put my input boost at 0. I don't want to turn up the initial file. And my max amplitude is what's going to set the top of the hard limiter. So let's say we don't want anything to be louder than this -12. We have a couple things that are just barely louder. Let's go ahead and trim those off, even though it won't make too big of a difference. So we're going to click here, and we're going to type -12 and hit enter, or we could move this slider around, and that is going to put us, that's going to change it as well. So -12. All right, we're going to hit apply to apply this effect since we pulled it from the drop down, and you're going to, you can't even see what it did. Let's do this so you can see what it does. Effects, amplitude and compression, hard limiter. Let's set it for -20. Is that cool? So what we're going to see is it's going to cut a lot of the sound out all the way down right here to the -20 dB mark. See, we did that and it trimmed it all way down. And that's going to be too much trimming. If we trim in too far, it's going to sound weird. So I went edit, undo, hard limiter one more time. I'm going to go effects, amplitude and compression, hard limiter, and let's do it right about the -15 where we wanted it originally. Okay, cool. Apply. There we go. So we don't have any kind of rogue peaks. We got a little bit more uniform top here. Next thing we're going to want to do is add some noise reduction. So this time I'm going to add it on the effects rack right here. I'm going to go click. I'm going to go noise reduction is what we're going to do. Adaptive noise reduction is what we're after. Okay, you're going to make sure you have high quality mode clicked. These are the current settings that I'm using to get kind of a light noise reduction sound. Remember, you want to apply this lightly. If you apply it too heavily, it's going to sound robotic. It's going to sound like you did something to it. A little noise is okay. A little hiss, a little hum. That's audio recording. I think that sounds natural. Dead silence sounds weird, and robot voices definitely sound weird. So we can listen to this as we get our settings. It makes little beats when I'm silent. It doesn't sound too crazy, and if we had our headphones on, we'd really be able to hear the noise missing in these silent parts especially. So let's go ahead and let's click apply. Remember last time we did an effect from the menu, so we had an apply button there. This time the effect is in the effect rack, so we have to go apply. And if we wanted to, if you're familiar with the concept of like opacity in Adobe Photoshop, that's where if one picture is on top of another and its opacity was at 100%, you'd only be able to see the top picture. It'd be completely opaque, blocking out the second picture. If you put the opacity down at 50%, that would mean that you could see half of the top picture and half of the bottom picture. If you put the top picture's opacity at 0%, you would only see the bottom picture. So it's a percentage of how much you can kind of see through it. In Audition, we have this wet-dry meter here. If we were to turn it all the way down, it'd be like we weren't applying the effect at all. If we have it up all the way, it's 100% applying the effect. So I'm going to leave it at 100%. I just want you to know what that is. I'm going to click apply. And so it's going to take a little longer to apply. If this was our 40-minute track, that might take a couple minutes to apply that effect, but it's pretty quick for us. And now, normally at the beginning, you can hear it the best. We're going to hear noise, and then it's going to get a little quieter. As soon as we hit record. Yeah, you guys can't hear it at all, but rest assured, if you have your headphones on, you're going to hear that noise go away. Especially at the beginning, you're still going to hear the noise for a second, and then you're going to hear it clear up. Okay, so now we've removed the noise. We've set the hard limiter. We want to stretch all of this sound out so that the waveform, so that things are louder, so that it takes up more of the space here that we're working with. We're going to go effects, amplitude and compression, normalize. Okay, you're going to have to add this one from the drop down. I don't think you can do it from the effect rack. Remember, normalize is going to stretch it out to as high as we set it, so we can do it by percentage or by decibel. I'm going to stretch it up to this -3 mark. So when I hit apply, you'll see all the top of this sound stretch up until it hits -3, whatever the kind of loudest peak here is at -15 where we cut it off. It's going to stretch up to -3. So let's apply. Boom, there we go. Stretched it all out right up here close to -3. Cool? Okay. So now that we have that done, we've made it a little louder. We've introduced some noise, so we're going to do noise reduction for sure. But first, we're going to add a compressor. So let's listen first to how it's louder. As soon as we hit record, you can see it starts recording my voice when I... Okay, it's definitely louder. We can see our levels down here are going to go... talk. It make more into the red, right? We weren't in the red at all earlier. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go amplitude and compression. I'm going to apply the compressor. Remember that this is going to make our loud sounds louder and our quiet sounds quieter. I'm going to do the broadcast compressor. And I know it's going to be a little loud, so I want to take my gain and I'm going to limit it to, I'm going to go ahead and put it at -3. All right, so let's play this. It's going to be a little loud on this mic. It makes little peaks when I'm silent. No peaks, and you can see even though when I'm quiet, there's still... If we look over here on our input level, this is our original before the effects, and then our output, this is after effects. It's going to be louder on the bottom one. Noise going on. Okay. Actually not sure that this multi-band compressor is necessary in this case, so I'm going to take its gain a little further down, just so it's not too hot for me. And I can definitely tell that it added some noise back in, so I'm going to go noise reduction, adaptive noise reduction, the same settings, and let's just go ahead and apply both of these, okay? So it's going to take longer, it's 2 effects. There we go. That's it. We've done editing our file. If we listen back. As soon as we hit record, you can see it starts recording my voice. When I talk, it makes little peaks when I'm... Cool, so now it's louder. We got a nice kind of full sound there. We don't have too much hissing noise. I think it sounds good. So now we're going to go back to multitrack. We're going to click multitrack, and we can see the file. Let's unselect, click this, select, back to this. Okay, so we can see this track is bigger. Remember earlier these were smaller. We can see that the effects that we made changed. If we had made cuts ahead of time, let's say we wanted to like cut out some of these chunks. If we go and apply the effects in the waveform, it's going to apply to the whole file. If we apply it, we have this track selected, we can apply effects here. If we click this track, those effects are gone because they're not on this track. Every track has its own effects rack, so we could apply effects to the whole track that way. But let's say we wanted to like delete these, and we're going to go Control Shift Delete. Is that how you... What is the hotkey? Let's look again. Shift backspace. So let's go Shift backspace. Boom, there we go. Ripple delete both of those. And let's say this was our final file. Okay, sounds like we want it. Here's what we're going to do. We're, of course, going to save. Okay, it's going to ask us, oh, do you want to move them all to the same folder? I usually click no. I like them saved where they're saved. Do you want to make changes to whatever this track is called that you recorded? So remember, you're going to want to back that up before you start editing it. You're going to want to go find the file, or you could come over here. It's called track 101. We can see that's the name. If we right click on it, we can go reveal in Explorer, and that's going to show it. That's going to bring the folder up for it so we can copy it easily. Okay, so we've saved it. Now let's assume that this is all done and we want to export this recording. Okay, we're going to export multi-track mixdown entire session. It's going to bring up this menu where we can name whatever we want to name the final. Okay, it's mixdown is what it calls it. Let's call it final. We have our choice here of format. Remember, Wave is going to be a bigger format. It's going to have more sound quality, but it's going to be a much larger format. MP3 is going to be more compressed, less sound quality, but a much smaller file. When we're saving for the web, we want to save it as MP3. And we also want to go to our format settings, and we can change that down all the way to 128 kilobits per second. I think that from what I've read for spoken word, still sounds great. It's going to give you a smaller file. Okay, so we're going to click OK, and it would save it. There we go. Cool, we saved it. So now we have our file, and we can listen to it back, and it would have the music, it would have this starting suddenly. Actually, let's go drag it into here and see what it looks like. So I think those go to the way I have them set up. Final episodes, yes. Practice session final, we can drop that in here. And look, it's exactly what we have. We've got our intro music, and then the talking starts. When the talking ends, it's over. If we wanted to listen to just this track, we could click the S. That's the solo button. M is going to mute these tracks. Either way, we're listening to just this track. Let's skip to where the music stops and the talking starts. As soon as we hit record, you can see it starts recording my... Beautiful. All right, so that's a quick overview. God damn, not that fucking quick. Of how to do editing in Audition and post-processing in Audition. Hope that helps. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions.